Welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. My name is Audrey Monkey, and I am your host. For more than 3 decades, I've been a summer camp director, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents. I really enjoy sharing stories, tips, and ideas to help others who care about young people raise a generation of kind, self-reliant, optimistic kids who become thriving adults. If you're interested in summer camp, parenting, or happiness, you've come to the right place. In episode 41, I'm talking with my friend and favorite happiness guru, Dr. Christine Carter. Christine is the author of 2 bestsellers, The Sweet Spot, How to Achieve More by Doing Less, and Raising Happiness, 10 Simple Steps for More Joyful Kids and Happier Parents. She is a sociologist and senior fellow at UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, where she draws on scientific research to help people lead their most courageous, joyful, meaningful, and authentic lives. Enjoy the episode. So I'm so happy to be here live with my friend Christine Carter, and this is her second time on the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. We were reflecting that you were my very first guest back in episode 1.
What an honor.
This is back when you were driving in a car somewhere. So
I know. I think I was driving to camp or something like that.
Probably.
I was driving south on the 5.
Yes. So. Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners in case they don't know who you are?
Okay, I'm Christine Carter. I'm a sociologist. I have been affiliated with the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley for more than 10 years, long time. And I have studied the sociology of happiness and really tried to apply it to parenting, which is the origins of our friendship. And also have a book about work-life balance and accomplishing as much as you want to accomplish, but by doing less.
And you know, of course, that I'm a huge fan of yours. And so I think we should just talk a little bit about how we met. So back, I don't know if it was 2011. Is that when Raising Happiness came out?
Yeah, 2010.
2010.
Hardcover, yeah.
Okay, so it was around that time, maybe either 2010 or 2011, and we can figure it out by when your girls started coming to camp. But was it 2011?
It was 2011. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I posted about a different parenting book, Nurture Shock. Just on I didn't even have a Facebook page for Sunshine Parenting back then. And a friend of mine, Jack, posted, he put a comment and he said, "Have you read Raising Happiness by Christine Carter? It has changed my family's life."
Aw, I'm not sure I knew this story.
You didn't?
No.
Okay, and so I, get on Amazon, I ordered your book, got it, and I was like, oh my gosh, every page I'm just like highlighting and notes, and I'm like, this is so great, this is exactly what I believe. And so then I was on a committee for a camp conference, and I said, we need to get Christine Carter to come to this camp conference and speak to us. And you weren't available for the conference for some reason. You were busy or whatever. And so then I was like, maybe I should have her come to camp or do something with camp. And then I did something which I never do this. I never reach out to people and say, you have some kids, don't you? And do they want to come to camp? I don't do that. I really don't. That's very unlike me. But I emailed you and I said, hey, do your kids go to camp? And we connected and we set it up that I was going to get the book to our families because I wanted our camp families to have the book. And you did a webinar in the fall to follow up. And that was now 7 years ago.
Yeah. Yes, Molly's about to have her 8th year at camp.
Right.
She loves this so much. I know, and I remember striking this great deal with you. I was so excited because first of all, I have to say, for now right? When somebody orders 800 of your books,
that's a really
it becomes a bestseller, right?
So I can be personally responsible for your writing career.
So now it definitely was 2011 because that was the paperback, right?
Right. Okay.
Went out to all the families. But I do remember having a conversation at dinner with Molly and Fiona. When I was like, guess what? You guys get to go to camp. And they were like, why would you send us to camp? They were not excited at all. I was so excited. They were not excited at all. And I remember Fiona, I was like, you get to go sailing. You get to go horseback riding. Well, and Fiona goes, that's your dream, not mine. Right?
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
It is so improbable, right? Our friendships and that this all has lasted this long.
I know.
Given that I wasn't thinking of sending my kids to camp. My kids did not even know they wanted to go to camp.
Right.
Now I was just reviewing Molly's social media accounts, which I do every once in a while, and I'm like, what is this? She quote unquote talks, which is really just over Snapchat, every single day to her cabin.
Her camp friends, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this, her camp friends, but these girls in some configuration have all been in the same cabin for the last 4 groups, and they're about to all have their last year together.
I know.
So and they have like campfire at night, right? So they say things like what they would say at campfire, like positive things that happen during the day. They like share these things with each other, and it's like the most completely positive thing ever.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Well, I mean, kids do say that's where they make these connections like none other. You know, in fact, I'm going to have to show you outside of the podcast just Molly talking about camp. I don't know if you've seen this footage of her, but she is so articulate in the way she talks about what camp means to her and why it's so important to her and how it's helped her as a person. It's just really like, it'll make you cry.
It just goes to show that sometimes we parents have more insight than our kids give us credit for.
Well, and sometimes they need to get a little bit outside their comfort zone for their own good.
Yeah, totally.
Because if you never do anything that you're slightly uncomfortable or unsure about, you don't really go anywhere.
Right.
Nothing happens.
That's exactly. And this is actually, I think this generation of teenagers and now college students, older teenagers, they're really struggling because they're so comfortable.
Right. And there's been, so I don't know if you've seen this book yet, iGen by Jean Twenge.
Yes.
Okay, so.
It's a must read.
Yes.
All parents, it's not ever shelved with parenting books because she's a demographer, but every parent needs to read Jean Twenge's book. iGen. Okay, and I just finished it. I actually reached out to her. I hope I get her on my podcast sometime. Maybe she'll listen to us and want to be on it. She's great. If you're listening, Jean Twenge, I really admire your work.
But she talks about there's been such an emphasis on safety, and it's kind of interesting because obviously the parenting has been very focused on safety.
Yeah.
And, not wanting our kids to get hurt and kind of being more protective. And we have all this new safety equipment. And it's like the safety thing has been so overarching that now the kids have been raised to think that anything that feels slightly unsafe is not okay.
Right. And if you think about it, so many things feel unsafe to them. It's not just that like riding a bike without a helmet feels unsafe to them, because that's good, right? Like, I'm glad that my kids wear their seatbelts and feel unsafe when they're not in that. It's that, anything that's not super familiar to them is now feels risky and unsafe. So on the one hand, it's good. They're less likely to die in accidents. They don't despite all that we hear, about them drinking and doing drugs and everything, actually the risky behaviors in the majority of kids are less. However, there's also just like unrisky behaviors, right?
Like growing up. Getting a job,
just being uncomfortable, being bored, doing anything you haven't done before. It's like terror. Right.
I know. It's very interesting. And I'm so glad you had read that book too, because it really resonated with me about the importance of making sure we help our kids navigate this.
Yes.
And figure out that feeling of, like, for example, one of the things that was quite frightening in the book is talking about how this is the first generation that is in favor of restricting speech when it's something that upsets them. And what they don't understand is that something that they say could upset someone else. So when you start saying that people can't say certain things, which of course hateful speech is horrible and nobody wants to hear it, but you have to be very careful. Now these kids are feeling unsafe if someone says something contrary to what they believe or posts something on their campus. They're saying they don't feel safe when people say certain things. It can be whatever direction you want, politically or whatever, but it's just walking on this very sketchy thing that we all know. I mean, at least I'm like, I don't want to hear it, listen to people. I'm going to turn it off or get away from people I don't really want to hear. But when we get to the point where you're not going to allow other people to talk just because you disagree with them.
Right. Or because it causes so much anxiety for you to just hear somebody else's beliefs, like that sort of discomfort. Like you and I hear it and we're uncomfortable, but we know that we can handle the discomfort.
Right.
We know that we can manage our emotions because we've had practice.
Right.
Managing our emotions, right? We've had practice coming up against people who don't believe what we believe or who say things that make us really angry, right? And we know that like, oh, that anger is a really good signal that I need to get myself away from this situation.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm unsafe.
Right. Or that you need to go lock yourself in a room away from all people.
Right.
You need to figure out how to get out, whatever, navigate that situation or deal with the discomfort or figure it out. But if we're getting to the point where people think the world has to
agree with them and
navigate. The world has to change things and re-navigate and reconfigure everything so that they always feel comfortable. That we just know that the world is never going to be like that.
No, never.
There will always be things that make us uncomfortable, whether it's other people who are different from us or saying things or whatever. So that book, I just think, wow, we need our kids to hear that and to understand that discomfort is part of growing up.
Well, so I think this is an interesting thing for us to talk about because it's so counterintuitive for most parents, right? We want to protect them. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable. We don't want them to be in pain. We don't want them to fail. We don't want them to be disappointed. All these things, and that like I can talk a really, really good game about all of this, but then like present me one of my own upset children, and what do I want to do? I want to fix it, right? Like,
and go talk to the person who bugged them, or deal with the teacher who's not being kind,
or get her in the better program, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't, and so I think that like this is an important thing. Like it's who we are as a generation as parents too. Like I can guarantee, well, see, it's interesting because I think I had the original helicopter mother. So, but she was unique, right? Like all her friends, like I watched all my friends' moms and they were like drinking and smoking and like letting us ride around in the back of the station wagon without seatbelts. I always had a seatbelt. Like, that, you know what I mean? Like,
so she was ahead of her time.
She was way ahead. She was way ahead of her time. But generationally, it was really different. Like I went to boarding school and I feel like my mom really suffered because of that, but all my friends' moms were like, this is fantastic, right? They saw the freedom in it for them, right? And for us now, I look, it's a whole different deal. So it's not just that our kids need to learn to deal with discomfort in many forms. It's that we need to learn to deal with their discomfort, right? I mean, and when you look at what has happened, just sociologically since they started being like iGen was born starting in 1995 or the early 2000s, right? Like, Target became a thing. IKEA became a thing. We as a nation went from thinking of certain things like air conditioning as luxuries or clothes designed by fashion designers that are now sold at Target, right? Or like even, certain types of furniture, a really comfortable mattress, memory foam, right? These were not things when we were children, right? We have become a nation built on comfort, and comfortable things, material goods, are available at all income levels, right? So even though we have 12% of our population is still living in poverty and struggles with hunger, and I mean, like we really have issues with inequality and hunger, but now even people who don't have enough to eat are likely, like 3/4 of them have a car, for example, right? Many of them have a cell phone, or a smartphone, or a computer, or both, right? Like, so you can, there is something has happened. The pervasiveness of the consumer goods make us so comfortable on the outside anyway. Not necessarily with our emotions, right? But on the outside, we have this expectation that we are entitled to comfort. And because we just don't have to deal with discomfort as much as we might have had to.
Never thought
in the 70s, we did not have air conditioning, and that was a luxury.
That is
Certainly
true. My
not in our
childhood
car,
home. Yeah. My
right?
childhood, you rolled down the window.
Yeah.
got the
Also,
breeze.
you dealt with being hot and sweaty.
Yes.
A lot.
Right. This is another weird thing. I got a lot of skin knees as a child.
Yeah.
My kids have not had that many skin knees in their life. Like, not as many. I felt like I had so many more just like beat up things on me and stitches and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what that meant.
Michael Mulligan, the head of the Thatcher School, was on a camping trip with 5 freshmen, and he got kicked in the face by a horse.
Oh my gosh.
This is a major injury, right? Like he was helicoptered out or whatever.
Right.
And afterwards, and they all handled it really well, like these kids. And afterwards, they were talking to the kids who'd witnessed the accident. And they said, how are you dealing with it? She said, that was the first time I'd ever seen blood. She was 15 years old, had never seen blood. I mean, a blow to the face, that produces a lot of blood. So that was kind of maybe a little bit of overexposure.
Right.
But she was like, oh, it was amazing. I've like this thing that I've been sheltered from my whole life.
Isn't that interesting?
It was totally amazing.
Right. Okay, so shifting gears. So first of all, I want to make sure I say both your books are both my favorites. Raising Happiness, and then The Sweet Spot, which it's The Sweet Spot: How to Find Your Groove at Home and Work. Is the subtitle different on the paperback?
Yeah,
what is it?
It's How to Accomplish More by Doing Less.
That's what I thought. Okay, How to Accomplish More by Doing Less. And this book has been really good for me, as this is more of it's not really about your family, but it is, because it's about how well you take care of yourself and focus on things about yourself, make you a better parent.
Totally.
And also provide your kids with a role model of a flourishing adult. Which kids need to see adults who are flourishing, not adults who are stressed out, anxious, and having all these problems, chaotic and problems. So anyway, both your books I just love. And for any listeners who haven't read either one, go get them both. They're really good. But today we're going to talk about, I'm really excited because you've been working with our counselors a lot at camp. You've been coming and training them each summer. And we've talked a lot about how teenagers especially need the kind of guidance that you're providing to parents in Raising Happiness and adults in the sweet spot. So tell me about this new book, or the concept, or the idea that you're working on now.
Well, the working title is How to Make a Break an American Teenager. Oh. So it's we've already started talking about this, right? Because it's based on all this data that we have, that Jean Twenge talks about in her book iGen, about how this generation is really, really different. And they are, now of them, for example, a quarter of them has made a plan to kill themselves, right? Like, that is horrible. So sad. Shocking. Like, I tell people that, and they're like, I have to look at the data. And then I give them the data, and they're like, this is too much data, right? It's what that means is this is too much for us to try and process. This is so scary, right? This is the most depressed, most anxious generation we've ever seen, and that it's not, we are on the verge of a very serious mental health crisis, and a lot of it has to do with everything that we've just been talking about, right? The world has changed very dramatically, and so we have all these great new technologies that give us so much power and make so much comfort available to us, and there's so much that's so good about all the technological innovations. And it's not, I'm not going to say, and there's so much that's bad, because it's not that it's bad. It's that we haven't adapted properly to all the new technology. Right? This is why camp is so important, because it's actually an adaptation, right? Like, it's a holdover from before. You needed the adaptation, but now it's a way to cope with the massive amount of information and amount of stuff and all the ways that the world has changed. So, I mean, if you just look at, iGen is the first post-internet generation, right? They've been raised on iPads and smartphones and Uber and all the Airbnb, there is no industry that hasn't been touched by this technological change that they have been shaped by. So while it's reshaping our society, it's shaping them developmentally, right? So there's that. This has really dramatically changed how we approach pain and discomfort, because so much is so available, like we've just been talking about, right? But this is the first generation of kids that really feels entitled to a life free from pain. And so if they're uncomfortable in any way or disappointed, it's somebody else's fault, right? Because they are entitled to a life free from pain.
Wow.
So that's seriously handicapping for them.
And what about that? And then of course you think of the pain medication addiction problem.
Yes, this
which
is
I'm like
not
thinking,
at all surprising.
Yeah, exactly. It's not at all
surprising.
surprising. If you feel like you should never be in pain, then of course you're going to take that pain med that someone gave you for your wisdom teeth, or that somebody has for back pain,
right?
For whatever pain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I even and obviously this is something I'm talking about a lot with my own kids.
Right.
But so one of my kids just had her wisdom teeth out, and I had a big long talk with the doctor about opioids and whatever, and that talk did not go very well. And we went home with a bottle of 40 OxyContin.
Yep.
I was like, seriously, I like pushed back against it. I wanted him to say to her, "You're having your wisdom teeth out. It's going to hurt
For a couple days. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to hurt. It's going to be really uncomfortable.
Advil is fine.
It's going to swell, and then it won't, and then it's going to go away, and the stitches will dissolve, and it might hurt a little bit more in the afternoon or at night." Like the things I remember being told, it hurts like heck. Right? Like this is not like, and he was like, "No, she doesn't have to be in pain." His message was, she doesn't have to be in pain.
Wow.
If the word gets out that this hurts, then kids won't have their wisdom teeth out. Right? This whole thing, I'm like, it hurts. It's major surgery. She's having bones removed from her jaw.
Right.
Right? Like it's
wow.
And she really struggled because it in the end it hurt.
Right.
Right?
Isn't pain also, I mean, don't you feel more pain when you're not as happy?
Yeah.
Like if you're in more positive emotions, don't you feel things less? Is that
Well, it's an interesting, it just depends. It's when you feel more, when you're willing to feel more, your nervous system isn't so hyper reactive.
Okay.
So let me explain that. Like right now, kids are they can just numb out their emotions by staying on their devices. Like if you feel bored, you don't have to be bored because you can just look at your phone. Or if you feel anxious about a social interaction, you don't have to have that interaction. You can just look at your phone. You can there's always something to distract you from what you're really feeling. And so that is like a painkiller in and of itself, right? Like it's a numbing device, but it doesn't really make the pain go away. So the emotional pain and physical pain are so closely related. It's hard to tease them out.
Right.
So if you're distracted, you're not going to feel emotional pain or physical pain really. Right. It's like if you watch a movie or whatever, then you don't notice that you just had your wisdom teeth out quite as much. Right. For the most part, but the pain doesn't actually go away. So the emotional pain, if you're feeling anxious and you distract yourself, with negative emotions, your nervous system starts to hyper react to them because it wants you to feel them. Right. So your heart rate might go up higher. Numbing actually amplifies the physiological effect. And so versus if you just let yourself feel anxious or angry or whatever what was coming up for you, that then processes through your nervous system doesn't become hair triggered, sensitive. So then it affects the system as a whole. Right. So if you just let yourself feel whatever is happening in your body, I mean, you don't have a lot of anxiety around it, you don't tense up around it, you don't resist it or whatever, you just feel it, it just tends to pass. The pain and the pain will register as a lot less intense. Okay, right?
Interesting. So if you let yourself really feel it. So what am I feeling right now? Kind of processing it.
Where in my body am I feeling it? Even if it's an emotion, right? We they get lodged in our forehead or our throat or our stomach or whatever.
You feel exactly.
Whatever it is.
You can't swallow. You feel like you can't eat.
Yes. So just really leaning into it a little bit.
Right.
And labeling it can really help, right? So cognitively saying, oh, this is pain from my wisdom tooth surgery, or this is anxiety about that talk I'm giving, or whatever,
nervousness about meeting this person. I want to talk to this person, but I'm kind of nervous about it. I'm feeling myself being nervous.
Or this is just discomfort. I'm just out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, if they can just learn to say that. We have this whole diagram at camp, and we go over it with the counselors about how everyone has a different comfort zone.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's very big. Some kids, oh, ropes course, sure, I'll climb up that and jump off that. And like nothing physical kind of scares them. And even sometimes they're like outgoing socially too. So it's like they have a very large comfort zone. For those kids, they need to get out of their comfort zone and kind of grow. They have to like maybe do some more self-reflection or whatever. Yeah. But there are some kids who have a very small one and they get uncomfortable doing something very, a very small thing, whether it's saying hello to someone or smiling at someone they don't know. But that discomfort, like being aware of it and being able to label it and say, ooh, this makes me uncomfortable. But I'm still going to do it, or I'm going to kind of work through this feeling, as opposed to, like you said, what often happens is, what can I do to not feel this discomfort? Oh, I can just look up down at my phone.
Right.
Then I don't have to be uncomfortable or deal with this situation with other people. I can pretend like I'm really busy with something on my phone.
Mm-hmm. But that's really important for kids to understand. It tends to make them more anxious in the long run. Right. It doesn't go away. And they miss out on the opportunity to grow their comfort zone, right? To make their comfort zone bigger, or to make new friends, or to do like the things that actually lead to happiness in our lives. Right. So this is why what we're seeing in these teenagers is the kids who are spending 5 hours or more on the screens are much, much more likely to be anxious and depressed. Right. Than the kids who are spending less time, less than 2 hours.
What if they're like FaceTiming with friends? I'm just trying to play the, like if they're like chatting with friends, or they're sharing gratitudes from their day. Yeah. It feels like there's some kind of connecting that could be more positive than just like gaming, or I don't know, just randomly scrolling through other people's photos.
I think that, so what we know is that the more extroverted kids who spend more time in face-to-face interactions with their peers also tend to spend more time FaceTiming and whatever. So, and it's not necessarily, like both things are good in that sense. Right. There seems to be a real dosage effect. Okay. Right? So after about 2 hours in front of a screen, things really change in terms of your perception, your ability to empathize with another person, correctly read them in face-to-face. It's just, and I'm sure it's very complex why. I think that the range of things that starts happening, it happens at a social level, right? That they're just missing out on face-to-face. They start to miss out on face-to-face interactions. I think it's biological. Like we know the blue light is screwing up our sleep and all that kind of stuff. So if you're on for more than 5 hours, chances are it's going to be within an hour of bedtime. Right. And then if you don't sleep, that affects your ability to process emotions, to learn. There's all these downstream effects. So we know that there are cognitive, on every level, things start to shift, and it just starts to snowball. So so then when parents say like you just did, but what about just FaceTiming? I know, right?
I'm trying to just, because this is what people say to me, and I feel like it's not just a problem with kids. I look around at our whole culture, and I'm just like looking at everybody. And it's sad, because you look around and whole families, couples, wherever we are, everyone seems to be addicted. And I'm not excluding myself. No. When I have my phone around, I just lift it up and start just start clicking on things. And so I always think when I'm doing that, oh my gosh, how can we expect teenagers to self-regulate on something like screens when adults can't do it?
No. And we have the additional advantage of having developed without these things. Right? And so if we can't do it, and then we're like, well, they're not that addicted. No, their brains are actually addicted. It's like an actual physical addiction. We understand it really well.
We don't want to break the American teenager. We want to make them. Okay, so what do we do? Because now I have some good news. What are we supposed to do? Because honestly, it's a little hard. I mean, camp. I love camp.
Super hard.
I love camp, and I love that kids come to camp for a couple weeks, and
then they can have no devices.
I love that they have that tech, kind of that detox time, and I feel like it's really good for them. And I know, especially for the college students who are working at camp, some of them have told me that they've changed their habits after camp because of that experience, but they're there for the whole summer, so it's like a couple months.
I would say Molly and Fiona too. They come home. They're there, so they go to session 1, and so are they.
3 weeks.
But they would come back, and the whole rest of the summer we're good, right? Like I don't have to deal with devices with them. But then Macy and Tanner did not, and I'm doing. I can really see the difference in the kids who went to camp.
Okay, so you think it has a lasting
I'm positive it has a
Okay.
lasting effect.
Okay.
And that's a really important thing to keep in mind, because parents can do that detox period whenever they want. So anytime you are able to get away from your normal routine, like if you're on vacation or you go camping or something, that's ideal. But you can also do it at home. And our kids all ask for it when they're starting to feel kind of addicted. Now.
Right.
And they don't all ask for it at once. And so when you try and inflict it on the ones that aren't asking for it, I mean,
Right.
this is a really hard thing.
Right.
I have
Right.
to say, like, part of helping kids learn to deal with discomfort is being uncomfortable as a parent yourself too. Like, I am really unpopular a lot of the time.
Right.
Because I don't, so we use like time in the car is a really good time to just stare into space, to just have to not be looking at a screen or whatever. So we do not allow devices in the car. This is very unpopular.
So what
Right?
about when
Like,
friends are in your car?
my kids are still not allowed to look at their phones, but I don't.
You don't enforce it with the friends.
No,
in the
now
car.
that we're in high school,
It's
it's
too
just too
awkward.
embarrassing
Yeah.
for them, and
Yeah.
and also it was like at first I'm like, okay, Tuesday is my carpool morning. We have a no phones thing in our car, and the kids were just like not compliant, right? Like,
And
so
you're
then
not
I'm
gonna
like, what am I going
Right.
to do? Give me your phone, right?
Right.
Like, he's
Yeah.
16,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of, in
And
your own
huge.
family, you've probably talked, I'm sure with you've talked to them about it.
Okay,
And
we talk
yeah.
about it, but that's not the only thing. Is not enough. I am really for structural solutions, as you know, right? Like for me to be the one nagging my husband, nagging my 4 teenagers, no phones in the kitchen, no blah blah blah, like all these like shutting it's too much for one human being to try and contend with.
Right.
This is why we haven't adapted, because
Right.
it's too hard.
Right.
Right. So I now have a device. There's many devices. The one that we use, because I got it first, is Circle, but with Disney. It plugs into the router. It monitors all the kids' devices at all times, even when they're not at home. So, so even like Macy's 18, and we're not really regulating, like the device, like with the youngest, will shut her phone off when she's been on it for too
Right.
much. It just
Okay.
completely controls her phone.
Right, okay.
We're not doing that with Macy, but she gets the report every day. Like she can, and we see it too. And just knowing that something else is monitoring it, right? Like,
It's like why it works to log your, you want to do more steps when you're keeping track.
yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yes,
just that it's
something
that
else is
psychological.
measuring
Like when
it.
you know, like you're gonna have to write down what you ate. You think more about it when you know it's being measured. I tried
Yeah.
one of those apps on my phone, and it kind of horrified me. And I was like so scared to turn on my phone because I didn't. But
Yeah.
what they will
Checky.
see, and
Yeah.
I'm sure they see, is that it's a lot more than what they estimate.
Yeah.
Because what they think, when you think you've only been on your phone for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then
Yeah.
you find out that it was actually 45.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking.
Or when you're just like hanging out with your friend who's sleeping over, and you realize like I can see it, like the next morning, I'm like, wow, looks like you guys were both on your phones until 3:00 in the morning, right? Like, what really were you doing?
Right.
Like, if you're watching a movie, why not use the smart television? Right? You know what I mean? Like on your phones or whatever,
Right.
like these things. And so then it gives you the opportunity to have a lot of good conversations. With the younger kids, it's just set. They have a set bedtime. They have set everything. All their devices just completely go off.
Right.
And like just today, one of my kids, so the kids are supposed to have their phones completely and totally off, powered off while they're at school. And then they have them with them in case they
need to call you or something.
Yeah,
Right.
like if they miss the bus or they have a question or whatever. They can turn it on to use it for like a phone,
but it should be off.
But not for Instagram, right? Like not so that they're not tempted during their breaks, for example, to be looking down at their phone instead of they're like at school with all their friends, right? So this has been a super hard thing for some of the kids, because they're like, I'm the only one at lunch not looking at their phone. I'm like, okay, well, you're gonna have to talk to your friends about that, because like you get to be together. You all like, you're so social, right? Anyway, so one of them today, I got an alert that she'd hit her 30-minute social media max for the day at noon. She had not even gone to lunch. I'm like, so then I can text her. I'm like, I see you have your phone on. You know,
oh my gosh, but see, this still comes back to you having to. This is my thing where I'm like, I don't want to, like, I mean,
Well-
so then what happened? I mean, I guess.
Well, not really, because so I got an alert
Right.
that told me that, and because I had time, was able
Right.
to say that to her. And it's true. Like she could technically turn her phone on while
Right.
she's at school. I could then, with this device, set it so that she cannot use her phone at all during those certain hours.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So
So
if you
she
wanted
knows that
more-
that's the next step.
Right.
But also,
right.
like, she hit her limit. She has 30 minutes a day on Instagram.
Okay.
She
So-
only uses Instagram. Snapchat's like a different category
Right.
for this thing. So
Right.
she hit it by noon,
Right.
right? It blocks her from all social
Wow.
media sites for the entire rest
Okay,
of the
now
day.
do you put any on yourself? Or do you not need it? Like I was going to say, because I would actually be interested in just being able to, like, I don't know.
Do it, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, just to see if you hit
could.
your limit. And
You
just
totally could.
Okay, well, I'm interested in that. Okay, so besides the...
I put a
kind of-
teen filter on my
Okay.
own thing because
Okay.
it blocks a lot of ads.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Okay, so besides, we've been talking for so long. I'm sure we have to wrap this up. Oh, yeah. Way long. Okay, overboard by like 5 or 10 minutes. But
Okay.
so besides the kind of getting in on top of the screen thing with our teens,
Yes.
any other like major areas that you think parents/teens would benefit from knowing before your book comes out? They'll have to read the book too, but besides that, what are the other kind of areas that you're seeing from your research?
So I think we've covered it already.
Oh, okay.
I think that these two things are really big. So get a device to control the screens.
Mm-hmm.
Let them be uncomfortable. Let them practice being uncomfortable. And we like don't even have the language around it. So they come to you and they're really sad and upset. And then you just say to them, I see that you're sad and upset. And they're like, fix it, fix it, fix it. And you're like, oh, it's so frustrating to just be sad and upset. Like you just don't take it away from them. You just let them have it. And you just say, I know that you're strong enough to handle being sad sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like witness let them feel the full range of emotions and be calm in the presence of them, right? Like so that they get the message that that negative emotions are not toxic. They are not to be avoided. They're not damaging. Most of the time, life's discomforts, which are, we buy a lot of stuff to try and make ourselves comfortable.
Right.
But we can't make ourselves comfortable all the time.
Right.
There will be blood, and there will be pain, and there will be disappointment.
Right. Sweat.
Yeah. There's this thing called sweat.
A backpacking trip, I would think about all the discomfort, like trying to sleep on a backpacking trip, like just when you're like, there's always like a rock like under some part of your body, and it's just, it's the opposite of the Tempur-Pedic mattress.
It's the opposite.
And even when I get an air mattress for like the special one, they always pop or it doesn't work anyway or whatever. But it's really true that it still can be a good experience, and it's, maybe you don't sleep as well or whatever. But yeah, the discomfort thing, I think that's one of the other things besides being unplugged at camp that's so good.
Yeah, you just got to trust that it's actually good for you.
Right.
It's actually good for you to be, it's called positive stress, right? Like it does not mean you're threatened. It's not a reason to be insecure. It's not a reason to be anxious.
Right.
It's actually really good for the human organism to be uncomfortable.
Right. And to be able to, and I think, like you said, because we don't want kids who feel like they need to numb any pain.
Right.
Because that's the danger of why, then you get into the addictions and all these other problems that are kind of like an offshoot of this same problem. That it's just like, if you can't feel uncomfortable, you start seeking any method.
Right.
In order to feel comfortable.
Right.
And you'll do anything or get anything or whatever. And that's not a good outcome for our kids or whatever. So
yeah.
Okay, well, this will be a really important book. When do you think it will be ready?
I think it is going to come out in the fall of 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, next.
Okay, well, when it gets closer and I have a chance to read it, we'll do another podcast.
Okay.
So we can make sure that people remember to go get the book. And then in the meantime, they can read your other books. Visit your website and stuff. Thank you so much, Christine, for chatting with me. This has been great, and I've learned so much, and we didn't even know what we were going to talk about, and of course, we found so many things.
Yes. We could have another hour.
But we won't.
We won't. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks, Christine. Thank you so much for joining me for this chat with Christine Carter. I so enjoyed our time together, and I know this episode was a bit longer than my usual ones, so I appreciate you sticking with us through to the very end. For notes, links, and more information about this episode, you can visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 42. I'll leave you with a quote from Christine. On her website, she has a post that is dedicated to her daughter who's graduating from high school this year called, "This is what I hope I've taught you." Let yourself feel what you feel. When we feel stressed out or sad or disappointed, we live in a world that offers many ways to numb those negative feelings, to not really feel them. But to honestly feel the positive things in life, to truly feel love or joy or profound gratitude, we must also let ourselves feel fear and grief and frustration. Your emotions are how your heart talks to you, how it tells you what choices to make. Practice listening to your heart. This is the way to know who you are and what you want.